Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to my Asperia Cup 4 Top 4 recap. Now, I'm going to go over the top 4 decks, top 3 with sideboard, and top 4 just the list, because we don't have the sideboard. We kind of have a sideboard, but it's the wrong sideboard, so I'm not going to cover that, obviously. Now, I ended up getting first in this tournament, and if you want to see my tournament deck tech and report, then go check out the last video I made. I'll put the link to that in the description. So as a result, I'm just going to briefly go over my deck, and then I'm going to go over to the other 3 decks a bit more in depth. So first things first, the deck I was playing was Order Dominion Soldiers, pretty standard Order side with a couple different exceptions to the rule, like Ray of Righteousness over Helm when I'm splashing Dominion, and I was splashing Dominion for 3 Mind Extorts and 4 Bloodseeking Mutant, along with the Helms and Cathedrals in the sideboard, and Stronghold Metropolis. Now, as for the sideboard, I talked a bit about this in my deck tech, but Path was for control, Mind Extort for red and control and combo decks, Helm if they can't remove it, or if I'm playing as Phoenixes, and Sunblast Priest and Heavy Infantry to get a bit of extra HP on the basic 2-drops. Anyway, we'll just, actually, might as well read over the comments for each of these, since I actually haven't read these yet. So this is from Bolter. Well-rounded take on Order Dominion Soldiers, focused on a strong curve, which allows for early aggression as well as late-game sustainability. Cards like Musketeer and Heavy Infantry allow for strong early-game presence, while Knight Recruiter, coupled with Stronghold Metropolis and Guards, and Cavalry Field Captain allows you to squeeze out extra value from your creatures. Bloodseeking Mutant and Master Tactician hammer things home and to let you seal the deal. I would say that's actually a decent description. I think, yeah, having Dominion in the deck does give you a long game plan, because you have a lot higher impact on some cards, and also you've got Stronghold Metropolis, so that Knight Recruiter just draws a card. When you play it, you sack the Militia, and you have at least a 1/1 that drew a card when you played it for 3 mana, which is amazing. Alright, on to second place. Now, this was Rajan's deck, one of my teammates, and he was playing a 1-turn heal variant, which I don't think anyone is surprised about. Anyway, so if we go through this list a bit, we've got 3 Thaumic Laboratory, which is interesting. It is necessary, though, because he's playing 4 Electrostatic Storm for the controlling aspects of the deck, since it is just Order Wisdom. There's no Dominion in this deck anymore. Besides that, only 8 creatures, 4 spirits, 4 library guards. They both cycle, and they both act as defensive blockers early in the game. 4 Flash Freeze works with the hero power, which is Advanced Darius, which isn't actually on hero, though it should be. So yeah, the hero's Advanced Darius, so he's got 4 Flash Freeze. There's a removal aspect with the hero power. It's one of the only ways of actually removing things. You can also use it with Thaumic Reflector, of which there are 3, to double Flash Freeze something and kill it. Besides that, we've got the Order Stall Engine, as I like to call it, which is Pacify an Angelic Song, just stopping your opponent from ever attacking you. Then we've got 4 New Horizons. You actually need 4. I always like 3 New Horizons in my control decks. However, the difference is there's a combo deck that needs to have 5 or 4 Order levels, so getting multiple Horizons late in the game is actually useful. And for draw power, Ancient Wisdom is always useful. Now, the thing about playing Advanced Darius is you lose basic Darius's draw power, so Ancient Wisdom has to make up for that. Now, normally it doesn't. However, with the spirits and the library guards, and also especially the Thaumic Reflectors, reflecting an Ancient Wisdom will let you dig very far into your deck, and you're removing shrines from your deck with New Horizons, so it just helps to thin out the deck. Now, the last non-combo piece here is Obelisk of Unity, 2 because they're legendary, so you only need 1 in the entire game, but you need to draw that 1, and it converts one of your wisdom levels into Order, which is very useful, both when comboing and in the early game, because it means you can go Electrostatic Storm into a Pacify, for instance. Lastly, we of course have the 4 Word of Grace, which is what is used to get to 40 life, all in 1 turn, hence the name 1-turn heal. It's basically the opposite of an OTK deck. Now, this caused a bit of controversy because he was the only person streaming in the lower bracket when he was going through the losers bracket. So both streams that were covering the tournament. I was commentating when I wasn't playing, and also the main stream done by Thurs and Bolter. Had to commentate over 2.5 hours of one turn heal games, which a lot of people didn't like, but it's a deck. I already have said my own opinions on one turn heal. But what I do like about this variant of one turn heal is actually in the sideboard. So the sideboard for Rajan was a transformational sideboard, which I really like. Playing 4 Guardian, 4 Antriel, 4 Force Mage, and 3 Path. So the idea with the sideboard was that Force Mage helps against red, but the main point of the sideboard is 4 Guardian, 4 Antriel, 3 Path. You take out all of your combo pieces, bring in the Angels, and beat your opponents to death with them. On top of that, in Game 3 you can sideboard back, so your opponent doesn't really know what threats to deal with. This is something that gave me a lot of issues in the finals and resulted in a lot of thought being put into how I was going to sideboard in Game 3 after I lost to Angels in Game 2. I ended up going for sort of a mix between anti-Angels and anti-combo, and it ended up working. Anyway, so we got Bolter's comment, Blast from the Past in the form of one turn heal that we haven't seen much of in these past few cups. Interesting note, by the way, Pedro was also playing this deck. Different version, but the deck itself. Angelic Song, Electrostatic Storm, stave off aggression when coupled with Disquisitive Spirit and Library Guards. Board control is the name of the game while you set up the mana requirement for the combination Obelisk of Unity, Thaumic Reflector, and Word of Grace, gain massive amounts of life and hit the 40 life win condition. Yeah, so I actually think the deck was fairly well positioned for this tournament. It's good against control, it's very good against control, and it's bad against elves, which didn't really show up. There was only one elf deck in the entire tournament, which is, funnily enough, we'll put Rajan into the loser's bracket. The only elf deck in the whole tournament. Besides that, there wasn't that much red, and there was a couple soldiers decks, but most of them were slower than mine, so he didn't have any issue, or just Order Dominion decks. Like, he played against Clone, but Clone was playing a mid-range deck, not a soldier deck, and he didn't play against any of the other soldier players, so the only soldier deck he played against was me, I think, which is also a rough matchup, since it's basically it's a hyper-aggressive deck that can keep up in the late game and just perpetually put pressure on you. Rimuel. Now, Rimuel was playing a weird deck here. It's Dominion Rage Implants playing Coronis. Now, he was the only person piloting a deck like this in the entire tournament. He got 3rd place with it. But this list in general is bizarre, and it's not the kind of deck I would play, but it definitely works, and I can see why he's got some choices in here. So, for Shrines, we've got a 10-10, not 10-10, we've got a 12-8 split, which is only 20 Shrines. I'm actually curious to see what the rest of the counts were. I was playing a 12-9 split. And Rajan was playing a 11-9. So yeah, he was also playing 20 Shrines. 20 or 21 is the generally accepted number. I prefer 21 because I hate getting mana screwed, but you do get flooded a bit. It's not too bad when you're playing soldiers because you draw 2 cards a turn anyway. So, with Rimuel's deck, he was playing the 20 Shrines, which with an aggressive deck can be seen as a bit risky, although it didn't seem to hamper him. As far as the cards goes, he's got the 6 1-drops, 2 Lizard, 4 Goblin Warrior. This is an interesting split, because this particular split is good against every single deck, apart from Order. Lizard Barbarian is necessary against Order because of the Militia, and Goblin Warrior sucks against Order. So you need Lizard Barbarians. You need Lizard Barbarians somewhere, and the reason why Goblin Warrior sucks against Order is mostly because of guards. You buff up all the Militia and you just kill the Goblins. So you need Lizard Barbarians against Order, and that's why maybe it's best to put a few Lizards in the sideboard, but this split works against every other deck, so I can see exactly why he made this split. You need 6 1-drops at least, so yeah, if you're going to play an aggressive deck, you need the 6 1-drops in red, and this is the split he went with, which I think, given the field, was actually the correct number. 3 Fia, very, very powerful ping card. However, you can't really play 4 because it's legendary, and you can't really risk that, so 3 Fia is pretty standard. 2 Goblin Fireworker rounds out the 2-drops, which you need 5 2-drops pretty much, especially with Fireball costing more. And I don't even think he had Fireball in the main deck. No, he didn't. So especially with Fireball costing more, you kind of need the extra 2-drops now. So Fireworker, it's good against artifacts, but it's also just a good 2-drop in general. Then we've got 3 Gibbon running, not 4, which is a bit surprising. However, this deck does run some other interesting things that it can do on turn 3, so it makes some sort of sense that Gibbon running is only a 3 of. 4 Phoenix, because 4 Phoenix. Phoenix is one of the best cards in the entire game, so if you're going to play red, you may as well play the Phoenix. And rounding out the creatures, we actually got 2 Red Dragon. This was interesting because I thought that the Altar of Dragons Red Dragon plan, or at least the Red Dragon plan, not necessarily the Altar, was a sideboard strategy that he brought in against me since the games were lasting longer. But as it turns out, he was playing 2 Dragons main deck, which is surprising. I'm not sure about that, but I think if you're playing Altar of Dragons main deck as well, it kind of works. Depends on whether or not you're using Red Dragon to snowball or whether he's just using it as a super late game finisher for decks that have stalled, because that's how the Red Dragon ended up coming out in our games. But yeah, it's nice to see the Red Dragon seeing some play since it is a pretty cool card. Then we've got 2 Massive Assault. This is something that Kindle kind of patented, was playing Massive Assault in these kinds of decks. He played it as a one-off, but the point is you don't really want multiple, but you need 1 per game. So getting 2 Massive Assault, it's kind of like with Obelisk Immunity we talked about a bit earlier. And we've got 4 Word of Fire, it's pretty standard. 3 Fire Blast, I'm guessing there's a 4th on the board, because you don't need 4 in a lot of matchups. However, you do need Fire Blast in almost every matchup. But you only need 1, not necessarily 2. Then 2 Dragon Fire. 2 Dragon Fire is a nice finisher, but again, you can sideboard in a 3rd one for the games where you need to be ultra aggressive. Now, onto the really interesting part. We've got the implants. 2 Grappling Hook, 4 Overcharger, and then we've got the 3 Helms as removal. I like 3 Helm main deck here, and the reason for it is because if your opponent uses artifact removal on the Helm, then he can't use it on the Overchargers, which are going to just wreck him. On top of that, you can use it with the Coronis Hero Power, one of the other reasons you can reduce on Gibbon running numbers a bit. As you got the Coronis Hero Power on 3 anyway, and you can start putting grapple hooks on things on turn 3 as well. So between all of that, you actually have a very powerful implant center for this deck. Now, grapple hook is actually one of those cards that's very underestimated right now. Flying is a very powerful effect, and being able to negate flying is very strong. And that's what grapple hook gives you. So I quite like the implant section of this deck, and it definitely worked out putting him at 3rd place. Now, as for the reserves, 2 Raid Shrine, 1 Dominion Shrine. I actually quite like this, because the idea behind this is that you can side out the Altar of Dragons for Raid Shrines in matchups when they're not very useful, and if you side in if you side in a lot of red cards, you can actually reduce your Dominion Shrine count by 1 and increase your Raid Shrine count by 1. Now, the Dominion Shrine I'm not sure about, because I can't really figure out what he's bringing it in for. Like, unless you want to just go up to 21 shrines, even without altar. I don't know, that's just a bit baffling to me. I would ask him, but I can't. So yeah, Rimuro, if you're watching, I'd like to know why there's a Dominion Shrine in your sideboard. More out of curiosity than anything else. I'm guessing it's for going up to 21 shrines, which you would want in some of the ultra-aggressive matchups. When you need to get off the ground very, very fast, having 21 shrines really helps. So I'm guessing that's why that's in the sideboard, but as I said, I can only guess. 1 Fire Blast, completing the set up to 4. 1 Massive Assault, putting it up to 3 for those games where you want to go hyper-aggressive and you might need 2. 1 Dragon Fire, hyper-aggressive again. 4 Fireball, I'm guessing that's for soldiers and for Library Guards decks, so that you have more ways of getting past the 3 HP blockers. And also the 3 HP key creatures in the case of soldiers. 3 Discipleless Ash, that would be for Order decks. Discipleless Ash is very, very good against Order-based decks, since if they don't get off the ground fast, you can always just Fire Blast them, lay multiple Disciples down, and then just wreck their day. So I really like Discipleless Ash. When I played against him, it was very powerful. Then we've got the Ramgath. Now, Ramgath has taken a big hit with its nerf. However, it's still very useful in Massive Assault decks against control decks. It gives you a lot of punch with Massive Assault. And as a result, I would imagine that against control decks, you probably sided in Dragonfire, Massive Assault, Ramgath, etc. Just going full aggro. Alright, now to read Bolter's comment. A deck that takes full advantage of the recent upgrade to Coronis' hero power. Heavy pressure can be applied through the curve of Goblin Soldier, Fia, Gibbo, and Roni. Implants like Grappling Hook and Overcharger allow for both late game reach and early big creatures, as well as massive life swings when the implants are applied to Coronis' Ravens. Red Dragon wins games on its own, especially when cheated into play with Altar of Dragons. Which, yeah, I would say that's a pretty much a good sum up there. Random note, before I forget, the Asperia Cup 6 is going to be an invitational, from what I've heard. They're going to invite the 5 winners of the Asperia Cup, since we got another one at the end of this month, and then they're going to invite 3 guests. So I guess before Asperia 6, like before they announce the players, I might do a prediction video or something about that. Now, thanks to Bolter, we actually do have the 4th place list as well. The sideboard is not correct, unless it's been updated. No, I think it may have been updated. I did make a comment on this that the sideboard was just not edited for proper sideboard. The sideboard was for Pedro's sideboard, who was playing 1 turn heal, and so the colors just didn't match. So Swamp Blues got 4th, which gave him the 4th place in prizes. So that's why I ended up on the forums, and I actually appreciate getting top 4 as opposed to just the top 3 deck list. Now, he was playing another Advanced Darius deck, so we had Advanced Darius, Basic Alexa, Advanced Darius, and Coronis. But it was a Wisdom Dominion deck this time. There were 3 Advanced Dariuses in the entire tournament, if I remember correctly. 2 of them were 1 turn heal, and then this was a Wisdom Dominion variant. So, first things first, Wisdom Dominion, since we've been starting with shrines for everything else, may as well do it this time. 7 Dominion Shrines plus 2 Cathedral Knight, and then 10 Wisdom plus 2 Laboratory, which is a 12-9 split in favor of Wisdom. Now, the reason for that is that he's got a double blue requirement on quite a few cards, and also New Horizons is the preferred start for him, meaning that you want that blue on turn 1. As for the skill shrines, Atomic Laboratory is mostly for Force Mage Protector and also Dust Titan, which is a surprisingly effective combination using Atomic Laboratory and Dust Titan, because it means you can shock something basically every turn, because you gain 2 energy from the Dust Titan over 2 turns as well. So you get 4 energy over 2 turns, which is enough to shock it continuously. And Cathedral is just a very, very good shrine if you're not running Stronghold Metropolis. So as for the deck itself, we'll go over the creatures. We've got Force Mage Protector as a 4-of, which is very unusual in main deck. Usually they're 3, but Force Mage Protector is very, very good against aggro decks in general. Something we'll notice is that this deck is very defensive in the early game. We've got 3 Gnome Power Engineers. Again, main deck, 3 Engineers. This is something which I was a bit stunned by. I was expecting most people to be running maybe 2 Engineers main board, or actually, I think if I'd been running Wisdom Dominion, I may have had 1 main deck just to have it in some situations, and then played 3 in the sideboard. That may have been the split I did, because I wasn't expecting that many spells and artifacts, with the exception of like Path, but Path comes out of the sideboard most of the time, so you can just side in the Engineers against Order decks. Alright, then we've got 4 Library Guards, pretty self-explanatory. 4 Dust Titan, that's a finisher right there. That 4 Dust Titan, very hard to block, and along with 3 Bloodseeking Mutant and 2 Karthus, those are the late game cards. So Dust Titan is the best finisher of the 3, but then Karthus and Mutant stabilize the board, allowing your Dust Titan to just shock the big stuff and get in damage. Besides that, we've got 3 Shadowstep Assassin, 3 Temptress of Deceit, 2 different deadly creatures. I like the 3 Assassins. I've always been a fan of 3 Assassin, 3 Assassinate, although he's playing 4 Assassinate because he's being very defensive early, as I mentioned. And also, you can side out the 4th one if you don't need it, so that's a plus of playing in this kind of format. But I've always been a big fan of the 3 Assassin because they're not always useful against Dominion, for example. However, they're pretty handy early game. You don't want a lot of them late game most of the time, but early game they're absolutely amazing. And then Temptress of Deceit's a cool addition here, and the reason for it is because of the hero power. You play Temptress, and then you just move forward and shock. Then they can't attack you, but then they can't block the Temptress as well. So you just play Dust Titan afterwards, shock shoot things, and take something out of their hand. It's a very cool combination, and it's one of the real big pluses of playing Temptresses in this kind of deck. On top of that, with Force Mage Protector, it makes it very hard to block, and it's just an absolute pain in the neck and one of those really, really underestimated cards in these kinds of decks. And that rounds out the creature suite. Now for the spells, we've got 3 Flash Freeze, as mentioned with Raijan. Flash Freeze works very, very well with the hero power. 3 Ancient Wisdom, again as mentioned with Raijan, you need the Ancient Wisdom for making up the draw deficit. You do need 3, maybe even 4 in Advanced Darius, because at least with Advanced Despina, you are gaining card advantage through the hero power every 3 turns, and with Advanced Darius it's every 2 turns, but it costs way less mana. But 3 Ancient Wisdom is probably enough to keep the deck going for about 15 turns, which should be enough given the amount of finishers he's playing to end the game. Now, the 4 Assassinates are very heavily defensive. This field is actually, depending on the way you look at it, is either very friendly or very unfriendly towards Assassinate. So, Library Guards and all the Elves die to Assassinate. However, in Soldiers, very few things actually die to Assassinate, and the Soldier's Memorial to put them out of Assassinate range. But then on the flip side of things, you have Bloodseeking Mutant and also Cathedral Knight, which puts anything with 3 attacking to Assassinate range. So depending on the way you look at it, Assassinate's either very, very good right now, or not very good. And that's really up to the way you use it, and also the judgment of the player, as well as how you sideboard after game 1. So, on to the sideboard. We have a couple of interesting things here. 2 Charged Aurite. This I was not expecting. Now, are there any... Let's see, is there any other energy manipulation here? No, it's just Charged Aurite. So that would be for Protector. I'm guessing that's against red, because it gives you a 1-drop to trade with the Goblin, and it also works with Protector on turn 3, giving it 2 shields. So I'm guessing that's for red, which is an interesting addition that I actually quite like. Then we got Flash Freeze, that's for an extra hard removal and also some extra anti-aggro with the hero power. 1 extra Engineer. As I said, I'd probably put 1 in the main deck, 3 in the sideboard, but here he wants to just have that 4th Engineer to be really safe. I think you should have 4 between main deck and sideboard, definitely. 4 Mind Extort in the board. That's something interesting. There weren't any Mind Extort main deck, which I actually quite like, because in this kind of deck, it's not like you're playing Soldiers or something where every single deck you're playing against has a spell that's relevant. When you're playing Control deck, you're not going to Mind Extort them and get rid of some removal spell that just doesn't affect you. Like, you're not going to get rid of a Noxious Fumes when all you have is Library Guards, because it just does nothing. So it's often better to have Mind Extort in the sideboard for those combo decks and those control decks, as opposed to just having them randomly in the main deck when they're not very useful. Then we got the 4th Assassin, that'll be for Elves, the 4th Temptress. Now that's I'm curious what he'd bring that in for. I do like the idea of having 4 Temptress. Maybe that's for matchups where he wants to pressure his opponent a little bit more, or for the control mirrors. Temptress is very annoying in control mirrors. Even against red, it's not too bad. If you have the Assassins as well and the Force Mages, then you have Temptresses in the late game can just rip apart your opponent's hand and stop him from burning you out. Then you got the 4th Mutant, again for Elves and Soldiers pretty much. 2 Cataclysm for Elves and Soldiers. You need these anti-aggro things. And then 2 Karthus, because in Control Mirrors you really need the 4 Karthus. And also, it's in some matchups the life gain is very important, like against red, so you need that 4th. You need that playset of Karthus to bring in. So anyway, that's the entire top 4 deck list. Now, as I said, if you want a full deck tech for the deck I was playing, then go check out the video that I'm going to link in the description. But that about does it. So as of now, this has been Jotto. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or just want to ask me any questions, put it in the comment section below. And I am back on my streaming schedule fully, so if you want to check out any of my streams, the schedule is in the description. But as of now, this is Jotto, signing off.